Alrighty, here we go. Hello, everyone watching from home. Welcome back to another episode of the Backbenchers podcast. Joining me once again is the lovely Maddie. Hello, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, great, thank you. Disappointed about, the eliminations this episode, but I'm surviving. I've had a couple days to cry already.
I know, so much to talk about.
So much to talk about. For anyone at home, we are covering Survivor Canberra Season 2. This is Episode 9, which is also the second to last episode. Next episode will be the finale. Oh my god, which is exciting, but also a little bit sad that it's over. I'm sure we'll survive, though. So we have a lot to cover. Me and Maddie were both on the last podcast, so we've already discussed last week pretty in detail, but just a really quick, tiny recap on that. James is pointing out that I'm wearing the Kubadang buff on my head. Sorry, James.
Ooh, favourite smarts.
Sophie's fault. She gave it to me, so she's making it my favourite. So the previous week, coming into this week as well, it'll be the fact that Ma stole Anna's vote to get Malcolm out. It was Ma, Michael, and Joanna who made a move against Malcolm last vote, sent him out, even though some of the other allies did not vote for Malcolm. But right at the end, Dan pulls the old switcheroo and says, actually, you're not going to be going back to camp right now, even though you're all tribal and you've just voted someone out, you're voting another person out. The game continues. What do you feel about this, Maddie? Were you nervous?
Look, I don't have anything against Nick, but having that immunity for 2 is just unfair. Unfair. Yeah, that just threw me. And just the fact that there was like really no time to scramble. I was like, I love a good scramble. So that was just a little disappointing. So didn't get to see that. But like, you've always got to have a twist, right?
Yeah, and it's likely that it had to do a double elimination of sorts, so I understand why this is an easy one to do. Everyone's right there, get them to go again. I do agree with you, though. I do think it would have been nicer if they did a quick immunity challenge at Tribal. I suggested like a trivia competition, something really easy where people just answer or like write down a number. I don't know, anything like that. Because Nick did kind of get a freebie a little bit in a way, and especially Nick could have been going home if he didn't have immunity.
I know.
So we don't actually get to hear any of the scrambling going on. It's not even like a trying to hear what they're saying. We just see them talk to people and we're just left to hope that it gets sorted out. We don't really know what is happening. In fact, until we see the votes, we don't even know who the targets are. It could be any of the 6 for all we know. Maddie, did you predict who you thought was going to get targeted at that point?
So the first time I watched it, I was like, who are they voting? How do they know who to vote for? Like, there's been no time to talk. Obviously through the edit, I'm assuming there might have been a little bit of time, but even then, like, how can you really talk openly when everyone's sitting there like, oh, I want to vote you? Like, that's just not going to happen. So I was sitting there and I'm like, I really actually don't know who the name was, but I did see, like, watching it the second time, you see Nick throw out Joe's name and kind of as that she's becoming a bit of a what's the word? I can't even think of the word, not a target, a bit of a stronger survivor player, just becoming a bit of a threat. That's the word, threat. So that makes sense that people kind of jumped on board of that because it was like, well, what do we do now? Oh, wait, I had that, like, they might have like clicked and gone, oh, I've had that conversation. She would have been our next person anyway. I was surprised though. I was expecting them to go orange and just completely annihilate orange. But I can understand why they went Joe because, you know, she would have had a great story at the end if she had got through.
People have been saying Joe for a while now. It's been kind of bubbling, especially from Nick. He's been just thinking that Joanna could win at the end. We don't know if that's true now because we'll get to it in a little bit, but she doesn't get to the end, unfortunately. When it came to this scrambling, I honestly didn't really expect Joe to go. I just thought that Ma and Michael felt like they had Joe, that we're going to get the troops against, like you said, an orange, just kind of an orange would go nice and easy. So when I saw that Joe voted for Mel and Mel voted for Joe, I at this moment actually thought Mel was going. I thought, well, okay, that just makes sense. They all sided on Mel. But interestingly, it's a unanimous vote, 6-1, and Joe ends up leaving, which I was bummed about, to be honest. I actually really thought she was going to make it to the end from there. Once she survived the last vote, I thought she was going all the way. What did you think, though?
Yeah, I just really thought they were going to jump on board. Let's get rid of orange, get rid of orange, get rid of orange, but didn't happen.
No. Well, it didn't happen at this moment.
At this very moment, that's correct.
I think that the double tribal council probably did hurt Joe's game a little bit, because if I had to guess, Ma and Michael thought, oh, we just made a big move. And it's a scramble. Everyone's there. You can't be sneaky about it. And they probably saw Joe as maybe a bit of an easy option, a bit of okay, everyone just get on Joe, because Joe didn't have as many connections to some of the other players. So
yeah, I kind of thought that maybe they thought she was an easy target, but she was so upset about it. And it would be hard not to be upset about it. I totally you can't not take it personally. People are voting you out of a game. It's like, no, it's kind of like you're not good enough or you're too good, so we're getting rid of you. But yeah, I don't know.
Got a fun comment from John here. Maddie really wants to lose you to continue losing, don't you?
No,
do you have a favorite? Are you a
that.
Kubadang person, or are you a Winu person?
Oh, I'm a Kubadang person.
Well, see, John, you are correct, and you are right.
But my heart's still for Simon. I wanted Simon to win, so that's just sad for me.
Kubadang plus Simon. That's the official ruling.
Yeah.
So Joe goes. Honestly, Joe's final words, so heartbreaking to watch, because Joe was, as far as we can tell, loyal to especially Sophie, Ma, and Michael. So really hard to see her be so, I guess, betrayed by people that she probably was not going to turn on, especially because she doesn't know Survivor that well. She probably didn't get used to the idea of getting your heart snapped out of you when you get voted out. Were you also a little bit torn by this, or you kind of that's just how it goes? What were you thinking?
No, I was sad for her, because I just felt for her, because it's you would think they're your friends, and then it's behind, it's kind of like a little gossiping game, isn't it? You go and talk to this person, you go and talk to that person, and then next minute it's oh, we've all ganged up and you're out. So yeah, I probably would have taken it personally if I was Joe, but when I rewatched it again and put my little strategic hat on, I was sitting there and I was yeah, it made sense. But I think the thing that she was most hurt about is Ma, really, and Michael, because she said she'd been, and Sophie. I don't think she was as hurt as about Nick, and that's the person who instigated it. And she thinks that Michael and Ma instigated the vote. So when she watches it back, I hope she's it wasn't them. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Another comment from James. We actually do love when you're here as well. Ignore this. We actually do love you as well.
Yeah, we do. Oh, that was just rude.
On the topic of the voting things out, it definitely does give a little bit of a high school energy, where you've got a group chat, but then you've got a smaller group chat, and then there's a lot of drama, and you're kicking people out of circles. That's kind of what this game is. It's an extended version of that, where you have to, as a group, decide who doesn't fit in the group anymore. So from that angle, definitely understand why Joanna was sad about it. Joanna is not here for an interview today, unfortunately. She is living her best life in Townsville, as far as I'm aware. However, she has sent a video for us to watch, which we'll watch after this first recap is over. So stay tuned for that. And hopefully we'll also have the second LeMay contestant doing an interview for us later. So that's not the end of the episode, though. So one person gone, and we continue on. We get to see, finally, they get to go back to camp now, and we see a little bit of a debrief of what happened. We hear why Joe went, mainly because of Nick, and we hear that Joe was a threat to Nick and a few other people as well, but that Ma did not want this to happen, which is somewhat rare for her, but guess that was not her plan. We also get to see a little bit of people strategizing for the next vote. Specifically, there's one conversation. I'm very curious what you thought about this. Sophie telling Sophie telling Anna. Basically, I'm sticking with my alliance, so do you want to vote off Mel? What? Did you think that was...
You're basically just giving away the obvious. That it's I'm sure Anna and Mel are we're gone. We're getting smaller. We need We need to come up with a plan. And I feel that Mel went out of her way to try and win Michael and Ma over, like just planting those little seeds here, there, and everywhere. But in saying that, like, what was Anna meant to say? Like, yeah, let's vote me, not Mel. Like, of course you're going to vote Mel. But then again, I'm jumping here, back and there, and everywhere. But I did find it interesting that Anna did finally vote with Mel later on, but we'll talk about that a bit more later.
Yes. Oh my gosh, the Mel and Anna connection, the relationship throughout the season has been so interesting. We'll definitely cover that near the end. But wow,
It's like
what a roller
hotness,
coaster!
really.
Yeah. So we do hear it reiterated here, though, if Nick does not win immunity, Nick is going. I'm not sure necessarily about Sophie, but it seems like everyone else, it's Nick that is going if he does not win this immunity challenge.
Yeah.
We also kind of get the impression, though, that Kuba Dang is still against Wenyu. So even though Nick is a target, it does seem that if Nick is safe, then it's probably going to be Mel or Anna. That's sort of the impression we have going into immunity. Did you have any other thoughts, though, about this pre-immunity segment?
No, I agree with you completely. You know, Ma's been saying we've got to get Nick, otherwise he's going to win it. And we hear her refer to it later in the episode. She's like, from day one, I told you we need to get him out. But, you know, as we see, Nick is a bit of a challenge beast at the moment, winning his third in a row. So I don't know if they're really actually going to get Nick out at this point.
Fun fact that I thought about when I was watching this episode, Nick has actually been immune every single round this merge. The last time he could have been voted out was when Banfield left. That was in episode 5, and we're in episode 9. He won the last 3 or whatever immunities, and he also played something at the first merge vote. So Nick quite literally has not been able to be voted out since Banfield left.
That is an interesting thing. And I also have something else that I've noticed, and I feel that needs to be brought up, is the fact that no idols have been in play.
That is really, really important. And we should definitely ask Mel about this when we get her on. Are there idols? Did people just not find them? Did they not get put back in? Maybe the producers saw how many things were played at the first merge vote and they said, we got enough. We don't need any more after that.
We're done.
Listen, we had 7, I think, people immune that one. That's probably enough people immune. The alternate sacrifice also hasn't come back in any way, which I was a little bit surprised about as well. I thought maybe for smaller things it would come in. We'll see, though. So we head to immunity now. Immunity challenge, I actually thought this was a really, really cool challenge. I loved the design behind it. I think it's a really unique challenge. I don't think I've seen it before in this form, at least. You have little bottles. Each person gets a bottle they have to fill up with water, but it's not that easy because they have to transport water on a very, thin plate that doesn't hold a lot of water, take it down a bit of a hill, pour it into their bottle. Once their bottle finally gets to the top, the first 2 people who fill their bottle to the top can move over to the puzzle. It's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle sort of thing. You have to fill it in to make a square. First person to finish that wins immunity. Did you like that? Did you enjoy it?
Honestly, this one kept me on my seat, okay? Just watching the strategies to get the water into the bottle was hilarious. I honestly, the creativity, Michael, loved it. Loved you using your mouth to drink it and then put it into the bottle. And then that was a copycat tactic by most people, which I found interesting. Poor Anna, though. She didn't do so well in this challenge.
Aston's going to be a bit more brutal about it. Anna did horrible. A little bit harsh.
She tried, okay? Even Dan, I found that was one of my funny moments, which I'm going to share anyway now because we are in that, talking about the challenge.
Get into it, yeah.
Oh, when Dan's just and Anna's out of the challenge, but keep trying. I was just
such a supportive person. He had that Lamington thing last episode. He's oh, looking at these Lamingtons. This time he's just saying you don't need to, you're out of this challenge. But also keep going. It's fun for us to watch, but you're out of it. Sorry.
You just have it.
The strategy for this challenge was so interesting as well. I think we've said it before that we like challenges where you can add a bit of your own personal strategy to it. The stacking blocks one is a good example. Everyone had different ways of doing it. In this one, it was how can you get that water? Most people got the water down to the bottles quite easily, but how do you get that water into the bottle without losing any? At first, people were just kind of tipping it in. A lot of it would go to the side. I think it was Sophie. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, the viewers here, that used like a little hand funnel to just
Oh
pour
yeah,
it
no,
into
she
the hand
did. And then
funnel.
a couple of other people copied.
Then you get copycats on that one. And then later on, John says it was Mars' idea. That's what I saw as well. Maybe it was Michael's though. Not 100% sure
Oh,
on that
okay,
one.
yeah.
I did see Mar do it first, but that's just what I saw. She decides to use her mouth. She just scoops up the water and spits it out to the bottle. I actually did a little gasp when I first saw that. Like, oh my God, she just spat into the bottle. What is she doing? And then I realized, oh, she's using the water. That's genius.
Yeah, and do you know what? It was so quick, that strategy. Like, there was
You
so
could
much more water going in.
see the difference as opposed to just like tipping it in. You saw how it just goes zoop, zoop, zoop. It took a little second for everyone else to catch on, but then eventually everyone was spitting the water into their own bottles, with one exception being Sophie. Sophie comes back one time, decides to put her water into Nick's. When I watched, I actually thought it was a mistake. I thought she just ran over to the wrong one. She's like, and she was going to be like, "Oops, sorry, that's not mine. Let me head over to mine." But we find out later, no, she actually did intend to put hers into Nick's. Yay or nay?
Why? We want Nick gone.
That's your answer. Why?
Why? Again, no hate to Nick, but you know, as Ma has been saying, and I stick with Ma, okay? No, he's going to take it out. What are you all doing?
Apparently it was 3 times. John, is this in reference to Sophie spinning it? Sorry, Sophie trying to fill Nick's bottle up? Is that what that means? Sorry, can you just clarify that? Yeah, I'm here with you. I don't personally see the point in helping Nick out in immunity. Sophie and Nick have been close. That's really clear. I think Nick 100% is protecting Sophie, and Sophie is protecting Nick. But when it comes down to it, it does seem, at least to us as viewers, that Nick would beat anyone at the end. And I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to keep protecting him in these challenges.
To add to that, Sophie doesn't know that it was Nick that threw her name out.
Oh, yeah. The only vote that Sophie has received so far in the game was from Nick at that point. That was the only vote she's received.
I just wonder if she knew about that, would she be so gung-ho about helping him in this challenge? Like, I wouldn't be. I'd be like, you threw my name out. I could have potentially gone home. It could have caught wind. It didn't, but it could have. So yeah, I do wonder about that.
Interestingly, it kind of seems like Nick's plan worked out. His plan of voting for Sophie, but then, kind of being close to Sophie and being like, who voted for you? That's so weird. And now Sophie is trying to protect Nick, even though Nick voted for her. It's just a whole situation on their end.
My thing that I was wondering is Sophie trying to stop Ma from winning because she potentially wants to take Nick to the final 2 or 3, whatever it ends up being? Because Ma was looking like she was going to win that challenge, in my opinion, because she filled the water up bottle up the most, and then she got to the puzzle first. And then without Sophie's help, could that have made a difference? Do you feel?
Yeah, that would be a great question to ask Sophie. Because the next week's finale, we'll be able to ask anyone who's free that week. So we'll have plenty of questions to ask all of them. I'm sure it'll be a long podcast. That's a really interesting question. I didn't imagine it was to prevent Ma. But on that same topic, yeah, maybe because she has said, even in this episode, Nick is her number one.
Yeah, and it seems that Michael and Ma are like each other's number one. And I feel like, no, I don't dislike any players here. I'm just saying my opinion. I feel Ma would win over Michael because I just feel like she has such a strong social game. And I'm not saying that Michael doesn't have a social game, but in comparison to Ma, I feel like she could take it out. So it would make sense to take him.
Yeah, you think Sophie would try and take Michael? Like that's what you're saying?
No, I think Ma would take Michael.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think Ma's going to take Michael, at least. That's what we've been seeing.
Yeah, but I just, Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Not sure. We'll talk about all the players left, I think probably near the end, just coming into the finale, what we think about them. Could they win? But at this moment, for Sophie putting the water into Nick's, she gets disqualified. She is out of the challenge. Unfortunately, you can't help anyone else. Individual challenges, which I do think is a fair rule, because then let's say everyone was against Nick. What if everyone just spat into Mar's bottle, and then Mar was at the top and Nick had to do it all himself? That's the issue you get if people help each other in challenges like this.
Adding to that, I also think it's interesting that Nick was then not disqualified or penalized because she'd already put the water in.
Yeah, and according to John, it was 3 times. Maybe they poured out a little bit. Maybe they told Nick
Yeah,
to
we
stop
don't
for
know
30
that. It could have
seconds.
been in
We
the
don't see
edit.
it.
Yeah, just interesting things that I'm thinking about.
I do think that based on the end of the challenge, it probably didn't matter, which is good to us, because it'd always be like a what if he did happen to win it by a tiny bit. Like, oh, if he'd just not quite gotten that extra help, would he have lost? We don't know. We said earlier, Ma is the first to get her ball to the top. Her strategy was very effective. She goes to the side. Other people like Mel seem to be closer a little bit. Michael was doing okay. Anna, unfortunately, was not doing okay. She has not been the strongest in challenges thus far. Nick eventually does catch up, manages to get second, which means those two are the only two to move on to the puzzle. When we got to the puzzle, Ma does have a healthy lead, and I was thinking, here we go, Ma. You wanted Nick out. This is the time to get Nick out. Win this puzzle. You got this. Unfortunately, she did not got this, and instead, Nick wins yet again.
I love Ma, but I was like a little bit frustrated watching the TV, her looking at Nick. So I was like, just do your own puzzle. You might actually get this. And then I think obviously it's natural. You're going to look and see where the other person's at. And then you're going to see, oh, they've put that there and it's working. You're going to copy. So yeah, I was a little bit heartbroken for Ma.
Said here, that's not like Nick asked Sophie to fill up his bottles on her own accord. Yeah, I don't think Nick should have been disqualified, but potentially, that is, potentially this much extra water that Nick got that other people didn't get. So maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure what happened there, but I don't personally think it was a huge deal. So
yeah, it wasn't like it impacted the challenge hugely.
Nick wins yet again. That extends his streak of being safe. He has not been eligible to be voted out in quite some time now, so good for Nick. But that means the plan to get Nick out once again has foiled. They cannot vote Nick out, so who's going to go now? We all head back to camp, and the first conversation I remember seeing was actually Nick and Mel. It made me realize I don't think I've ever seen those two talk to each other on camera. I don't know what they think about each other, and this did not actually clarify, to be honest.
Yeah.
So Nick kind of just says, well, it's probably 4 versus 2. I think it might be you or Anna, but also maybe something crazy will happen, which Nick does not appear to do anything crazy, but it was a nice little moment on his path. What did you think about Mel's argument here, though? Because her argument is, don't take us oranges out, because we don't have oranges on the jury to vote for us. Kubadang has plenty of purple on that jury who is going to be able to vote for potentially purple to win, whereas me and Anna would only have John and James. Did you think that is a fair strategy, or probably not going to actually impact anything?
I thought it was an interesting way because I think Mel kind of knew it's going to be a 50-50 chance of me and Anna, really. So I think that was a great strategy to kind of employ and try and get just sowing the seeds of doubt. I thought that was quite a good idea. You don't want you don't want everyone on the jury voting for someone else for potentially if you had a stronger alliance with them. So yeah, I did like that that tactic, but I'm not sure that it completely really worked with anybody, to be honest. I know she tried really hard, and it was definitely worth trying. You've got to pull everything out that you can when you feel you're on the chopping block, but it just didn't pay off in the end, which is unfortunate.
I love how much effort all the players are putting in. They're not just rolling over and dying. They're not just saying, oh, well, it's me. Everyone is really trying to get into it, keep fighting. Malcolm, especially James, all these people, they don't just give up when they're out of the numbers. They keep going. initially we hear from some people that probably Mel is going to be the target between Anna and Mel, because Mel seems to be a bit of a good talker. She could, if she's at the final tribal, she could really sway people her way. People are seeing Anna as a bit less of a threat because she is quite timid, might not be the most outgoing person. And when you're at a final tribal council, it's really about how well you sell yourself. And
Yeah.
they don't think Anna's going to be able to sell herself as well as Mel could. I did find it interesting, though, because while this argument is true, this kind of implies that Anna might make it to the end, which would mean that they wouldn't vote Anna out. Interesting little tidbit there, because that would imply that they have to vote one of the other Kubadang out. But I guess that just wasn't really thought about at that moment.
No, and it's like, I feel like it could potentially be, if they, once they have the opportunity to take out Nick, if they do, they're going to take out Nick, I feel. So we'll see what happens.
Step aside, Nick. Mel's the new gardener in town planting those seeds. Yeah. Mel's been planting seeds for a while, actually, to be honest. She's been pretty good at that.
I have a question for you, Mylo.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I've thrown you off guard. What did you think of the conversation with Anna and Mel?
Oh, the conversation with Anna and Mel. Are you talking about the one where they talk about how Sophie is not working with them? Sophie told Anna that they're going to vote for one of those two. Is that the conversation you mean?
Yeah, and then how they try to bring across to others to vote with them. Like, did you really think that they were going to be able to pull that off?
I'm going to be honest here. I actually got a little bit blindsided by the edit. I thought Sophie was going to go when I watched this, legitimately.
Really?
So we'll get into why.
They were going to pull Ma.
Yeah. So we hear that the other target is going to be Sophie. We hear why, because Anna just heard from Sophie that Sophie has no intention. And also there's the talk of Sophie and Nick being really tight because of what we just saw in the immunity challenge. We just saw Sophie give up her chance to win to help Nick, which definitely indicates that those two are quite tight. We hear it from Mel and Anna that that's the name they're going to pitch, and they say, we got to get Ma and Michael on board. We see heaps of different conversations in different configurations, but the main thing to know is that there's 3 different duos. So we've got Nick and Sophie, Anna and Mel, and then Ma and Michael in the middle are talking to both sides, telling both sides what they want to hear, actually. They tell Anna that, yeah, we're voting for Sophie, don't worry about it. They tell the other side, yeah, it's Mel, don't worry about it. The reason why I kind of thought it would be Sophie is because Ma has been against Nick for a while, and I thought Ma would fear that Sophie is actually not going to take Nick out. What happened in the immunity challenge is not what you do to someone you're trying to take out. It's a really clear sign that you don't want them out at that point. And so while Sophie told her, yeah, no, Nick next, I thought Ma could have still been like, okay, but you say that and then you don't do that. So I don't know. That's why I was thinking that way.
We do see them have a conversation about how it's painted a target on Sophie's back as well. So I don't know if you caught that as well, but Ma and Sophie are having a conversation, and they're talking about perspective and how everyone might have viewed it in different ways. But yeah, I don't understand why it happened. And look, until we ask Sophie, we're not going to understand why she did do that.
Yeah, the conversation about the perspective or perception is so interesting as well. They're trying to predict jury votes. They're trying to think about at the end who could win. We have seen Ma's game this whole time. I think we both agree, if Ma got to the end, she has a really strong case to win, even against Nick, in my humble opinion. I'm not sure that would happen, but I think she has a chance there as well. But Ma and Sophie are talking about it, and they're saying, think about the perspective. What does the jury think? The jury's probably going to look at Nick and say, Nick was the running things. Nick was the one that set up the alliance. He won all these challenges. If Nick gets to the end, the jury's going to see Nick as the rightful winner.
Interesting, isn't it?
And maybe that's the case. I don't know. We'll find out next week. John has a perspective here. Wouldn't taking out Sophie allow Nick to flip to the Win You Girls next vote and get rid of Ma and Michael? It would. That's definitely a case. But what I was thinking is the idea is that Nick doesn't win immunity next time. And if Anna and Mel didn't take out Nick, I think that would be a pretty silly move, even if they had the choice. But this is what you just said there is probably why Ma and Michael did not take out Nick. And the other thing is that also Anna now could still work with Nick and Sophie if she wanted to. It kind of could go either way. All right. Is there any other conversations that you thought were key before we head into Tribal? Anything else that, like, you know, between these people that was noteworthy?
No, I just noticed that Nick was talking about how he's lost trust in Ma a little bit, and Ma is aware of that because of the Malcolm vote. But other than that, yeah. So I am a little bit unsure about where that alliance stands. Hey.
It's so weird because Ma has been working against Nick for quite a while, like not even just against Nick, but also against Malcolm without telling Nick. Like all these things working behind Nick's back. And Nick is only just in this episode being like, I'm not sure if I can trust Ma. Like you can't trust her at all. Don't do it. But I'm glad that you're catching on to that now. And even later in the episode, he has a confessional where he says something like, I can trust Sophie and Ma because they're the people who've been with the longest. And I'm just interested that he keeps adding and Ma onto it, even though Ma is leading the charge against him.
Yeah, and he mentions about how they're the people that relay information back to him.
Yes.
But I don't feel that Ma relays that much information to Nick anymore. She
relays information that is convenient to her. That's the information that she relays back. I don't think she has told Nick, yeah, I'm trying to vote you out. I don't think that's been relayed back.
Surely she wouldn't, right?
Pretty good with her stories. Yeah, I also, something I totally forgot about earlier, I'm not sure if you caught on to this. Michael has a conversation with Nick earlier in the episode, and Michael just says, I'm never going to write your name down. Something like that. He said a similar thing to Malcolm as well, and then voted for Malcolm. So I'm starting to notice a trend that Michael just kind of says, yeah, I'm never voting for you, and then he probably will vote for you.
Yeah, he says something along the lines of that, and then he says, I'll never vote you out, and if I did, but I didn't catch what the end of it was.
And if I did, it was probably like, if I did, then I'll lose the jury vote, or you won't
vote
for
or
me
something like that. But yeah, I did find that interesting.
Don't trust Michael, guys.
Yeah, Michael and Ma? No. Maddie and Mylo? Oh, the M theme here. Interesting.
So many M names. It's literally us two, Ma, Michael, Mel, and Malcolm got voted out last time. Just too many M&Ms here, honestly.
Too many targets. Too many M targets.
Okay, I think that's pretty much everything then heading into Tribal. Tribal Council was a little bit more informative than usually they are because people are a little bit more honest. Mel and Anna do pretty much say, yeah, we think we're on the bottom. And also, Ma speaks a decent bit about Sophie's decision. She kind of rambles on a little bit saying, yeah, you know, Nick must be a bit of like a cult leader vibe if he's able to get someone to try and give immunity to him, which elicited a bit of reaction because that was quite a strong claim. And she also said, but I trust Sophie, so I'm not worried about it in public, in front of other people that plan to vote for Sophie. Very interesting on her part.
I don't even know what to say about that, to be honest. I just kind of was like overwhelmed by what Ma was saying just because she was like, yeah, like you said, she was rambling on and I was like, I am so lost. I feel like this is part of the game just to confuse me.
Can't trust the M's to know what Win-U to go. Yeah, sorry, those M names always targeting the Win-Us. Anna gets a little moment where she says, yep, Nick is a challenge threat, get him out. Not, you know, being shy about it. Nick is the target from those Win-U people and also some other people as well. But then we head into the vote. I don't think there's anything else really in Tribal Council. Did you have anything?
No, there was something where they talked about doing a 2-2 split at one point. But yeah. But other than that, no.
Sophie brought it up. I believe it was Sophie. And then everyone else was kind of like, we don't really need to. I don't think there's a point for that. The issue with the 2-2 split as well is if, you know, it's like 2-2-2, if one of the numbers changes over, it comes 3-2-1, and then someone could someone could go home that you wasn't meant to go home.
Yeah.
For the voting, I believe we see Nick and Sophie vote for Mel, and I think we see Mel vote for Sophie. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Which we expected. They're not going to show the swing votes right now. Read out the votes. It's Mel, Sophie, Mel, and Mel is eliminated. Did you have any sad thoughts for that, or is it kind of like that makes sense as a move?
Look, I think Mel played really well. Again, I am new to the whole Survivor thing, so I just thought from the start when she got that ultimate, oh sorry, I was going to say it wrong then. The skull thing. What's it called again?
Super Idol. I thought you were going to say like the Ultimate Idol, which also would have been right.
Yeah, the Ultimate Idol. Let's call it that. When she had that, I just thought she was just so great. The way she just was like walking around, like just in her bag, lugging it along. Like I was like, yes, like look at this girl go. Honestly, and she got so many votes all the time, and she just kept powering through. And I was like, she's gonna do it again. She's gonna make it to the end. And so I was really sad when I saw Mel. Like I get why. Like I understand completely. Like because I thought she was a great player. But in saying that, I was kind of hoping that it was Anna.
Yeah, okay. Which is fair. You are allowed to have your favourites as well. I'm sure we all do. I was definitely also a little bit sad to see Mel go. I think I'm like all the final six. I think they're all good people and pretty much all good players as well. I don't think there's bad players in them.
Oh, I don't think he was a bad player or anything. It was just between the two of them. I was kind of hoping, like kind of how Nick said that she would talk. Like we've seen Mel talk.
True. It would have been a more competitive end to it if Mel was at the end, is what you're thinking. Yeah, between Mel and Sophie, I think it would have been more interesting game-wise if Sophie left, because then the final five's kind of a bit of a scramble. Who gets power? I don't know then. Whereas this final five with Mel gone, I do think Ma and Michael probably still hold the cards for the rest of the game unless something crazy happens. I don't know. I kind of like Anna's arc this season so far. We'll talk about her more in a bit, but I like that she's kind of saying, I don't want to be controlled. I think it's an interesting storyline at the very least. We'll see how that plays out. Mel is voted out. She tries to resist it. She pulls the torch back a couple of times.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much.
Get those extra few seconds. The rest of them head back to camp. We don't see that yet. That's in the finale. Mel has her final words. She, is sad to be going, but she does understand it. And it's definitely interesting that her closest ally at the end was Anna, because those
Sorry, that's what I'm having a laugh about. Like, I just realized that I'm laughing and you're probably wondering why. I just love how she's like, oh, and if Anna did vote with me, I'm sorry for calling you Amy. And I was like, oh, that's gold. Because I'm like, it's the one time Anna did actually vote with you.
Yes. Oh, and on the topic of votes, I was just trying to calculate it. Think about Mel's votes. I think she said she received 13 votes by the time that James got voted out. Then she received 2 more votes plus these 4. Does that mean she received 19 votes this game?
Yeah, I actually messaged Mel and I think she said it was 18 or 19.
18 or 19.
Yeah, I was just, and then I just think that's such a great run to get through that many votes.
And fun fact, Mars received no votes.
Okay, I just need to say this right now because I did write it down on my little notepad here. Why is nobody targeting Ma? Why can nobody see she is a giant threat? I love Ma. Ma, I want you to win. I love you. Well, okay, that sounds a bit much, but
Wow, yeah.
Love you as a player, okay? But I just don't understand why no one's targeting her.
She has done a really good job. We've spoken her praises for many weeks now, but I'm seriously still impressed how well she is playing. She has not had her name written down. She's barely been a target. Like at episode 1, maybe she was a target. I think that was it. In this episode, even Mel says Ma has got such a good social game, which is true. But then they say, so we need to get Ma and Michael on our side, not go against them.
Yeah.
Because Sophie and Nick aren't turning against Ma, and Anna and Mel need Ma. That's the situation.
Look, she's winning over the players and she's winning over the podcasters and the viewers.
If it's a fan favorite award, she might be up there. We stand Mal, always getting the name wrong. James, did you intentionally get Mel's name wrong there? Hopefully that was intentional. All right. I think that's it for this episode. Did you have any other final thoughts before we see Joanna's video?
No, I think that's everything for now.
All right. So, as I said earlier, Joanna was not able to be on for like a proper interview. However, she's already answered some questions that viewers have submitted. We've got 5 minutes and 40 seconds. So just listen in. We'll enjoy it together. And yeah, let's roll.
Hey guys, I'm really sorry I can't be on the pod tonight. I really wanted to do it, but because of the editing, it meant that I was on tonight. And I'm up in Townsville with my family, sweating my ass off. Oh my god. I think I'm going to come back like 10 kilos lighter. All the sweat I'm losing. Sorry, probably too much information. So a couple of questions that I got asked for the pod. So the first one is, are you now hooked on Survivor? No. It's not my vibe. I had a great time playing, don't get me wrong. Absolutely loved it, but not really something that I enjoy sitting and watching. But that's okay. Do I think I would have been eliminated next if it wasn't Double Tribal Council? I don't think it's the Double Tribal Council that was the issue. It was that somebody had a immunity idol and was allowed to keep it for the Double Tribal. I honestly don't know, but from the discussions that were had with me, which could have been wrong, I'm honestly not sure anymore, was that if Nick didn't have that immunity idol, he potentially would have gone. So I think I'm feeling that I only went because of that immunity idol. But I could be wrong, I honestly don't know. Why was it important to me that Grace and Banfield weren't unanimous votes? I'm just somebody that really feels I'm such an empathetic person. And I was like, it'd really hurt to feel like you were literally voted out by everyone. Because that goes, well, no one likes you. That's just me being me. I'm not really understanding the game, not the harshness of it. So, yeah, like, when I got unanimously voted, it bloody hurt. Like, it was so painful. So, and that's what rattled me more than anything. Like, I was like, if I get voted off, whatever, but the fact that it was a unanimous vote, especially by people who said they had my back, that kicked me in the guts and then punched me while I was down. So I am really glad that I made it so other people didn't feel that way. Plus also Grace was my friend, so yeah, didn't want to do that to her. If I were to play again, would I play differently? Or how would I play differently? I definitely would play differently. I'd be more conscious of the fact that people are probably talking behind my back and, you know, saying one thing to your face and another thing to somebody else. So I'd definitely be more conscious of that, which I think would make a bit of a difference. I don't think I would play too differently to what I played, because I played my game as myself. I didn't change depending on who was around. Well, I feel like I didn't. I mean, it might come across differently on the cameras, I'm not sure, but I was just myself. So I don't think I would play too differently. I would probably keep my cards a bit close to my chest. Like, I would have thought more with the stones when I found them. I probably would have thought a bit more, used them to my advantage. So instead of just saying, here they are everyone, I might have shoved them in my pocket and then gone, right, and used it to gain people on my side, I guess. Like, I could have given one to Mel or Ma or whoever, and said, hey, let's have each other's back, I've given you this. So I think that is definitely something I probably would have done. Like, I would have stopped and thought a little bit more, which is definitely not my style. So if I played again, that would be very hard to actually do. So I say that, but I probably won't do it. And I had a great time, I really enjoyed it. Like, it was hard, and getting kicked out in the way I was kicked out was brutal, but I had such a great time. Apart from the rain and my bra, that didn't help, but I had a great time. Do I think it was a good move from the other Kubernetes to vote you out? No, I think they messed up. Like I said, the double immunity didn't help. The immunity idol, didn't help. But in saying that, I could have been told what they thought I wanted to hear instead of actually what was happening. So yeah, they were saying, yeah, if Nick didn't have it, he might have got voted out, but who knows? Is that what they were just telling me? So, yeah, I mean, and I think the way they were saying that, they voted me out because I would have won, like, that's a bit of a cop-out, to be fair. Well, we'll never know. I could have won, but we will never know because you guys, I'll say it, you didn't have the balls to keep me in to see what would have happened. So, how's that for a comment? Yeah, and I think, like I said again, thanks heaps for watching. Thanks for all the support. I know I've been getting a little love, so it's been feeling pretty good. Thanks. Oh, and my mum said everyone was mean for voting me out, so there you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. Oh my gosh.
Joe's mum just told you all off, Kubadang.
Joe and Joe's mum just told you all
Yes.
off.
What a comment, Joe.
Fun fact, every member of Kubadang except for Grace voted for Joe at some point as well. So they just kept coming for her, honestly.
No, I thought it was interesting that it was a cop-out that they voted her out because they thought that she would win. This is an interesting thought. I just thought.
Oh, sorry, it was like a little bit slow on my end. I think it's all good now. But yeah, definitely thought it was an interesting comment. I think we spoke about that earlier, being that on a previous podcast, is Joe actually a threat to win, or are people just saying that? I do think Nick believed that Joe was a threat to win. But at some point, Sophie, when she heard that, she was like, can Joe really win without like a whole lot of obvious strategy that most people have? It's hard to say. It depends on what the jury respects, but we won't know now. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for being on, Joe. I'll see if Mel is available for a podcast tonight. Hopefully she is, but if not, then we'll figure something else out. We'll get into the other stuff first. Maybe we can pop into our favorite moments quickly. Oh no, Mel's already here. Oh my gosh.
Oh, she's here.
All right, please, everyone, welcome. Give a warm welcome, I should say, to Mel.
Hey.
Hey.
Mylo, what are you doing with that shitty buff on? Get it off. Actually, I only put this on because I saw you had purple on, so I'm getting mine off too.
Listen, my hair's a little bit orange. Pretend that's like a when you.
Oh well, I'm a ginger myself, so I'm all for that. It's kind of fitting that I being a ginger made the orange tribe. So I'm forever win you, even though we were chaotic as fuck.
So chaotic.
What does your little hashtag say? I stand the Orca and King of Ponderosa. Oh, John and James.
The J's, the M's.
Johnny.
The J's and the M's, yeah. All right, so we definitely have some questions for you, but before we get into our questions, I just want to give you the opportunity to talk about your experience. What thoughts do you have after watching the episode, after playing in the season? How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's hard, a bit different for me because I was going through a lot of shit at the time. Oh, God, what's wrong with me? John knows how much I hate crying, and I can't stop crying these days, but it was a really different situation for me watching it back from a lot of the guys. I was going through a lot of stuff with my mum, so I was already really struggled that weekend, feeling guilty being away. And, in the afternoon when she would normally freak out and start calling me, I started stressing, was she all right? So I was finding it really difficult to concentrate. throughout that whole weekend. And watching it back's been quite triggering. Sorry. I just can't stop crying these days. But, you know, like, I've lost like so much family between filming and now. And it's just, I'm really grateful for the Survivor Canberra family that I have now, because I feel like while I've lost some, I've gained like, I've gained like a whole group of friends that I wouldn't have had if I didn't have this experience. Sorry, I've been drinking, so you know that makes it really.
No, I wanted to read tissues, but like, yeah.
You need to start doing.
Let me just have another sip and start again. Sorry, I've been out. Yeah, there's been drinks involved, so I thought it was fitting, given I was drunk as fuck when I did my Meet the Cast video. So I feel like it's fitting that I'm also a little tipsy doing this one. So full circle moment.
Your Meet the Cast video was so entertaining as well. I loved watching that. Your personality just shone through. I was so excited for you.
Well, Maddie Ching made the really bad mistake because I actually love doing like LRGs. So that weekend that was actually filmed, I did like an amazing race style challenge up in the Hunter Valley. And so it was our 4th one. We killed it. Like, we came 7th out of like 90 odd teams. That was our best result. And we were like, yeah. And then we decided to hit the wineries. So we did finished at a winery. So of course, you know, you have to support the winery. And then we went and did like a vodka and gin tasting. And then Matt goes, all right, let's do Meet the Cast video. And I was like, what? And I was just disgusting. I was sweaty. But yeah, it was really fun weekend. So as you probably couldn't even tell, I had it like a little cocktail behind my back. Dan would have seen somewhere in the footage, but there were some pretty lethal. Well, you know, Nick's given me a margarita before, but let me tell you, this margarita was even stronger.
But
yeah, sorry, forget all that. So getting back to the game.
Great intel.
But I had like the best experience. I mean, I'm such a survivor nut, you know, like I think it was really interesting looking at the initial tribe matchups, because, you know, it was really clear that it was an unweighted tribe, and that I'm not slinging anything towards Dan, because I know exactly how many people like pulled out. So I don't know about the purple tribe, but I know 4 people pulled out from the original Winu. We know Simon was one. We know John was one. I was one, and also Sam. So there was 4 like replacements. So you do start to wonder like where the tribes probably would have stacked up better. But it was clear to me from the get-go that we were pretty stuffed. We were pretty close in a couple of challenges, but we just couldn't get it over the line. So, you know, props to the purple people, as I like to call them. But, you know, I've actually been calling them the purple pricks this week. But, you know, but I love them all. Dan says he's released the raw footage. The raw footage of what? Oh, my interview. No, don't, Dan, please.
Already seen a little of that raw footage, the part where you like accidentally snorted and then said, cut that out, Dan, and then Dan included that. We've seen that part.
Oh no, I did. What you guys don't realize is I actually had because it was a team of 4, obviously Amazing Challenge is a team. So it's a team of 4 who raced to the end. And my 2 teammates, my colleagues from work, were in the background. So there's a great photo, which if I can find, I'll put in the chat. But there's a photo of my friend Lara taking a photo of my friend Kevin, who's taking a photo of Matt filming me. And you can see me in every single photo. It's one of my favorite things ever about the whole season. It's not even game related, but like I already had a favorite moment before I even played. But yeah, so they were in the background giving me a lot of shit, and yeah, it was yeah, that's probably the best that Dan could show you.
Wow, I kind of wish I was there just to view it then. I feel like that would have been like a whole episode of Survivor on its own, just getting to watch all that go down, honestly.
Yeah, it was fun times. Yeah. No, but outside of that, like, I mean, I think I had a very different game from a lot of the other players. And I think I probably had one of the hardest games. You know, I also had one of the greatest advantages, I'm not going to lie, but going to the ultimate sacrifice first, yes, while I got the super idol, it did force me, and I'll get into this in a minute, but it forced me to have to lie a lot quicker. And I stand by what I did. Like, you know, we all watch Survivor. We all like sling shit at people that are upfront about what advantages that they get. And, you know, you see their ultimate demise. So, you know, there was only one person that, I mean, I eventually did tell James and John about the super idol, but I was really careful not to tell them until I'd passed my sacrifice, because 3 sacrifices in both votes. At the end of the day, you already saw Anna pile on 1 vote. I didn't know about the first one. I did know, and I know the edit didn't show it. I actually did know that Anna was voting for me in the Joseph vote, pajama pants vote. I knew that was coming. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, they approached me about it. Are you ever happy that you're the decoy vote? And remember, I don't know, Anna's voted for me at this point. So I was like, yeah, cool. Like, knowing in the back of my mind, I'm doing the numbers. If she votes for me, that's 4. I should be fine. And I was fairly confident that no one else was. So I was all right with that. But yeah, it was certainly a harder strategy and a harder path because the people that I had formed really good trust with, although Hayley didn't say it on this podcast, she did say it on the other one. John, me, and Hayley were really close from the beginning. And I knew once the votes came out that things were going to be different. And bless John, like he was really trying to help me, but I'd known him for like an hour and a half by that stage. Like, I wasn't sure whether I could fully trust him or not. He was the one person that I probably wanted to talk to the most about it, but I just needed to wait to that sacrifice. Anyway, I'm drunk, so you go and ask questions.
I love all the intel that we're getting here, so thank you. I was definitely going to ask about that early stage with the super idol, because your game started differently than everyone else's did. Everyone else had to just, you know, scramble with the votes, make sure they were safe. But you, from hour 1, had the super idol to both manage, but also as a bit of an advantage. So you've kind of explained already a bit of what I was going to ask about how, like, you know, you started with that strategy. But I'm definitely curious. You said that you were close with John and Hayley. What happened with the Simon vote then? Because that was something that obviously didn't quite work out.
So you could see by John's, although I get why Dan's probably not included in the edit. Like, we were pretty close those first couple of rounds. And I was really confident going into the first round that I was going to be safe. I wasn't expecting Anna's vote. And it did take me a while to figure out who it was. And, you know, we'll touch on Anna a little bit later, but like, legitimately, I felt safe that first round. I wasn't very worried. The second time around, because they obviously knew they had advantage, they didn't know what it was. But they knew last time, and I can't remember quite the timeline, but bless Johnny, because I legitimately at one point, when I got that advantage, I burnt the clue, right? And in my mind, while I'm trying to process everything, I'd kind of forgotten at one point, was it 2 votes for 3 tribal councils, or was it yeah, so I was already a little bit confused as to whether it was 2 over 3 tribals or 3 over 2. And so in my mind, I feel like I was more confident it was 3 votes on 2. But then when it came at 4, I was like, wait, am I even more confused? Like, you know, where did that 4th vote come from? And I was trying to figure out how I was going to play it down. And then bless John, because John, worst maths in the world, says, oh yeah, there's you got 4 votes from 10. He didn't initially realize it was 11. So I was like, yeah, it's 4 out of 10, and 2 people voted for me, and I told him my sacrifice was 2. So John kept perpetuating that for a little bit. I don't exactly know when or if he ever figured it out. And I think at one point you see Anna go, they were talking about it, and they said, oh no, she got 4 sacrifices. And you see Anna go, wait, could it have been 3? And then she realized that she would imply herself as being the 4th, and quickly backpedaled. So I think that was a bit of a that was a little tell for her, but she did cover it quite well.
Yeah. We have some viewer submitted questions, so hopefully we've got some juicy ones here. This is going a bit forward. This is actually the episode before this one. Who would you have voted for if Malcolm hadn't cancelled your vote? Because this is very important in terms of what would have happened last round.
Yeah, and it was interesting actually listening to Mal's podcast because he was spot on. Like, it was always going to be him, and I don't think he even realised it was going to be him. And I don't even know that my win knew, or apart from John, I don't know that James or Anna even knew at the merge vote. So I was never voting with, when it got to the merge, I was never sticking with you. I would have 100% I would have stuck with John. And by that stage, James and I had started to repair our relationship, but like, no, sorry, I'm a redhead. Once you scorn me, you're gone. Anna was a completely different story. That was never going to happen. So I wanted to work with Mal. And I know that you talked about this on the pod before. I really liked Mal. I'd known a little bit, like I'd never met him. I'd never even chatted to him, but I knew him from groups. I'd seen a lot of his comments around strategy, and I knew that we were on similar paths and similar wavelengths probably. And so going into the merge, the two people that I really wanted to work with was either Mal or Michael. And I think what I did well was give both of them the impression that I wanted to work with them. But Mal made a really bad mistake from my perspective anyway. And he made the assumption that the Winners were tied and that Anna and I were working together. And so the very first thing he had said to me, and I know on the pod he'd said to you guys that he'd given the advantage to Anna to
hold on to
tie up me and Anna, right? He didn't do that in front of me. He gave it to Anna, and then came in. The very first thing I think he said to me was that, he'd already spoken to Anna. He wanted to work with me, and that he'd given her the advantage. And I'm like, oh, you got to go. You got to go, Mel. Like, seriously.
Yeah. Mel, because last week Mel said, you know why we couldn't work together. And I was always wondering what that meant.
Yeah, and so Mel didn't know, and I never gave the I never gave the impression on that merge vote that I was out of the alliance. Like, I played along with Mel and was like, yeah, and the same with Anna, and so they all thought I was going to work with vote Michael, and I was like, hell no, I'm not voting Michael. I wanted to work with Michael, but at the same time, I'd already been talking to Ma and Michael, and I didn't want them. At the end of the day, I ended up voting for Anna for a couple of reasons. One, spite. I'm redhead. Two, I didn't want, I couldn't vote for Malcolm. Malcolm had taken himself out of the equation, and I didn't want either side to know where I was sitting in their alliance. So for me, the best vote was Anna. So they had no clue where my alliances were. And that's kind of how I played the whole game, to be fair. Like, I didn't want my alliances to be visible, and I wanted them to be fluid. And
sorry,
so, yeah, that second. Hey, sorry?
Sorry, do you mean Amy? Not Anna.
Yes, Amy. Yeah. Amy, Anna. It's the same thing.
Fun point from John here. At that point, Anna has voted for Mel 3 out of 4 pre-merge tribals. So Mel just wanted to join in on the fun.
And to be fair, like, I wasn't necessarily bothered with it, because I think the one thing with Anna, and don't get me wrong, she's actually the one person that I probably wanted to catch up the most with after the season, because, everyone's got their bucket list. But the one thing I didn't get, I have to say, is a tribe swap. And then the thing that I didn't think that I wanted, that I probably love the most, is the rivalry. And I know we've had a good couple of laughs on chats and in the group chat and stuff like that. But she lives in Melbourne, and then she went overseas not long after we stopped filming. So we've never actually caught up face to face. I think she's coming back in like May, something like that. So I'd definitely be keen to catch up with her. But I knew very early on that Anna wasn't someone that I was ever going to be able to work for. Like, no disrespect to her. I mean, she's very young, so I think, her, and I don't necessarily know that she's got a huge knowledge of Survivor. I could be wrong, but I always just the way that she and James touched on it, and so did John. Her logic didn't make sense to me. I'm very logic focused, and even I think in one of your pods, Mylo, you said something about my meet the cast. I said as a buyer, I should be able to predict my path to the end, and to a degree. And it's nice to know too, because part of the fun of this season actually for me was the crew. I had so much fun doing confessionals with the crew, and I had such great feedback from them. So many of them had told me that I had the best reads in the game, and so you get a bit of rapport with them as you're going. But I just never felt like I was going to be able to work with Anna because she was so indecisive. To me, her thought processes didn't follow logic, and I don't mean that in disrespect. I think watching back, she's done very well in the game. But you can see as it progresses, and what I do laugh about is that I was very upfront. I think the first name I threw out was Anna, and I didn't know James was so aligned with her from that beginning, and I think they knew each other beforehand. But all along I could see as the game progressed, everyone's frustration with Anna growing for exactly the reasons why I didn't want to work with her. She's sweet, she's lovely, but she, as I said, it's a fast-paced game. Get on board the vote, girl. When at that point with Haley, I was like, oh my god, Haley is literally, that cartoon image where where it was Haley got voted out, and Haley and Anna were talking about how to flush the idol, and you could just see Haley was like, John or James, just give me a name.
Yeah.
So that for me was why I could never really work with Anna. I work in a fast-paced environment. If you can't make quick decisions, I just can't work with you.
And that's fair. You're entitled to that.
What are you going to
Sorry,
say?
you're entitled to that opinion. That's fair.
Yeah, and she's probably got her reasons. I mean, I think in an early confessional, she said something about she could tell I was quite just strategic, and I don't know exactly. You'll have to ask her why she didn't work for me. And I know maybe because she thought something was going on differently to what that first in that very first vote. She had a little freak out thinking something else was happening other than what it was, and she threw her vote on me. From that point, maybe she thought, oh, I've already voted for Mel, she's probably not going to trust me, blah, blah, blah. But as you can see throughout the game, I never felt like she had the social capital to pull numbers against me. So I was never actually really worried about Anna and Anna voting for me. I felt strong with John. I felt strong with Haley. I did get nervous when Haley started to get closer to Anna, and at that same time, I was gravitating more towards James. So we kind of did this cross alliance thing. But more importantly, there's two things that I want to kind of talk about, because I know I'm rambling on, but John has probably the most underrated edit. Every single person that has left this game has said John was their number one. And I know I said in my James confessional, and you need to look at my wording quote, how I put it closely. I said to James, I told you I was you were my number one. I never believed that. John was always my number one, but I really needed James to believe that because I needed to get to merge. But from the very get-go, John was number one. And if you look at every single person, bar Simon, every single person that got voted out, John was pretty much their number one. And I laughed when I saw his Regina George confessional, because I think even John underrated his own performance. John is the Regina George, not Haley.
That's that.
I 100% agree with what you said. From what I've heard from all the eliminated players, and even kind of, you can read into the edit a little bit. He was playing a really good game, and he kind of got a little bit unlucky that everyone else got to go to Ultimate Sacrifice and win themselves safety.
Very much so.
Chance to go there.
Yeah, and even though he'd it's funny because that vote that I got left out of the, and I want to correct a couple of things that's been shown in the edit that's not right. So Anna, bless her, she called out that I was adamant that I wanted to vote out Hayley. I need Hayley to know I was never on board for that vote. I never wanted it. It was Simon that threw her name out. I never wanted to do that. I think part of the issue with that one, I think the edit actually shows it too, is that that's when it started to reign like biblical proportions. And I knew that Scully was in my rain jacket and I couldn't get it out, and nor could I get my rain jacket out. So I really had to get saturated before and wait for my opportunity to go and remove him and get my jacket out and swap it over. So it was during that time that when I was away, James, Anna, and John were having a conversation. And at the same time, I was stuck with Simon. Simon at that point it's like Simon had just realized, and I love Simon to death, like he's a top-notch human. But in terms of the same wavelength in strategy, we weren't on the same levels. And as much as I love him, I couldn't work. I knew I couldn't work with him. He was the next target to go, even though, Hayley's injury, he would have gone, regardless of whether, like, eventually he was always the next target after Joseph. But when I saw that video of the three of them talking, I was like, that was the moment. And it was James, which I knew James was a sneaky little bugger. I love my orca. But he was trying, and it's funny because I tested him. I told him the idol, and I was testing both of them because I told James that I had the idol, knowing that Anna had the idol because I had the super idol. So it was kind of, I did lots of little tests along the way to see where loyalties lied, and knowing that you can see my expression on that vote where James was trying to flush the normal idol, but I was like, even if you succeed, it's a super idol, so you can't vote me out, and I know where I stand with you. So for James, he was always the devil I knew, but I wanted to keep him close because, as John pointed out, he was always a shield for us.
Definitely. Speaking of James, he has a question for you.
Oh, James.
How does it feel to be blamed for Nick's rogue vote on Sophie? I'm sure you have some thoughts on this one.
I thought it was hilarious, to be fair. Like, and maybe now's the time to talk about, Sophie, like, losing her shit was something that I'm sure Dan was actually really kind to me in the edit when he showed what he showed, because I think I was laughing my ass off. I was like, what's going on with this chick? She's freaking out about one vote. Love you, Soph. I really do love Sophie. Like, don't get me wrong, but in the game, in the heat of the moment, you can probably say things in a confessional that you just like, it's like you're talking to your brain. But
Mel, how many did you get? 18 or 19?
I got 18 votes, and I'm proud to say that I have the LRG record for the most number of votes against a player, and it took them until the second last episode of the season to get me out. So, yeah.
That's sticking it to him.
even if you take those 6 votes out, there's only 2 people that beat me. One is, which I love, Kath from Backyard Survivor in season 3. She got 16 votes, but she had a redemption. So I think 4 of those votes were actually 8 of those votes were after redemption, because she played an idol. So the first 4 didn't count, and then she got another 4. So if you take that out, if you take the redemption part out, she only got 4. But then it's one of my other favorite players from Backyard got 13 votes, who was Mitchell. And so he didn't have any like sacrifice or anything. So I guess if you take out redemption and you take out my sacrifice, then Mitchell is probably the winner. But I'm sticking with the fact that I got 18 and I'm the leader.
Take the crown. Take the crown.
We're setting records.
Dan's pointing out here that if you had said something worse about Sophie, Daniel would have shown it. He's evil, apparently.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it wasn't filmed, but I do know I had such a laugh about that. Like, I thought it was hilarious that someone was stressing out over 1 vote. And yeah, I think by that stage I'd already had 13. And I'm like, oh, it's a walk in the park.
Now, you were reasonably so close to the end. We have to ask, what was your end game? What was your final 3 plans? If you had any, what were you thinking?
Yeah. So I don't know why I necessarily had a final 3 because I'm a big believer in like a fluid game. And so I never really wanted, outside of John, I never really wanted like a firm alliance. Like I wanted to be able to play the middle. I wanted to be able to be flexible with my alliance. And I do think the one mistake I did have was not being honest with John and having that ride or die number 1. But the rest of it, I wanted to be able to maneuver. But I think that what screwed, because I kind of had a timeline in my head, what screwed me over was the double. It was always something that I wanted to approach Michael about, because I don't think it's necessarily shown in the edit, but I feel like, and I could be wrong, and I'll let them speak for themselves in the when in the reunion or your pod, but I always felt that Ma and Michael were like this. And although the edit doesn't show it, I feel like Michael was just as responsible for a lot of the strategy between the two. And I kind of knew where those pairs were, and I was just trying to split up all the twos, because going into the numbers, you had no chance whatsoever. 6-4, it was always going to be a tough battle. So I just knew that it was all about planting seeds, trying to split up the two. And, unfortunately, John got caught in the crossfire, which is the worst situation for me. I think he even said on his podcast, like he, we had a plan A, plan B, but, Armageddon with all the advantages happened and we weren't sitting together, so we couldn't talk freely, and we weren't aligned on that vote. And if we had, I think it would have been a very different game.
Maddie, did you have any fun questions for Mel?
Oh, no, I just had a comment. That, honestly, Scully was huge. Like, could he have been any bigger? Honestly, you poor thing.
He was the third boot. I've got him here, actually. I'll grab him for you.
Oh, we have a guest.
Yes.
It's my little mate. That's him.
Oh, imagine trying to carry him around, honestly.
What was it made of? Is it metal? Is it wood?
It's I don't know. You'll have to ask Carleen, but it's like rock solid. It's heavy. I don't know whether it's ceramic or what. But yeah, it's legit. It's bigger than one of my boobs. So, like Sophie's like, oh, you could have stuck it in your bra. And I'm like, that's the third boob for me. Like that. And it was actually really heavy. It was definitely like, and it's funny because you see me in one of those challenges running with my bag, and it was definitely miscommunication, but I could have swore at that challenge that I heard Michael and Sophie say, look in the bag. I have no idea what they actually said, but that's what I heard. You get paranoid in the game, obviously. And they swear, oh, no, that's not what we said. And I do believe them. But at the time I was like, oh, they're going to check in my bag. I don't know why I was stressed. Like at the end of the day, they can't steal it from me anyway. But in that moment, I just ran with my bag.
Can't get in my bag if I'm holding it.
Rocking my fashion.
I remember Dan's comment. Dan said, Mel, holding onto that bag really tight as she works this challenge.
It's funny because if you go back and have a look, the first tribal council, Maddie Ching and I like quite often laugh about different things, and we've got very similar sense of humor. And I picked it up and I saw him put a comment in the chat. The very first round that Anna gets that idol, she's sitting in tribal and she's holding that bag like it's a baby, and when I look back, it's so obvious what she's doing. But it was funny.
I've got a really important question to ask. All the viewers need to know: would you play again?
Oh, 100%, in a heartbeat. Survivor is probably the biggest passion, 100% in my life. Like, I have Survivor Excel workbooks older than half my cast, so, it's something that has been a massive part of my life for 22 years. It's probably what I've wasted the most amount of time in my life in. Depends on what you factor waste as, but to me it's fun. And actually specifically put an interview with someone purely because that they this week at work he had on in our that he, you know, one of his fun things to do outside of work was build databases on geographical information on Excel. And I'm like, don't be embarrassed by that. I build, like, you know, databases based on Survivor. So we're on the same page.
You got to have a passion. So good on you, Mel.
Yeah, no, I loved it. And, you know, like, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to play. As I said, like, I wasn't, I'd missed the call for casting. I think Maddie told me about it after it closed, and I was bummed that I didn't get to participate. But I reached out to Dan anyway and said I wanted to crew. And I think it was about 2 weeks. I think that event was 2 weeks before we actually played that Dan said, oh, you know, someone has pulled out. Are you able to play? And I was like, shit, yeah.
Oh, so exciting. Definitely. James asks, would you bring an anti-vote repellent if you played again to get away with those pesky votes towards you?
No, you know what? I look back and I just think that that makes me look stronger. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, you don't like it when your name's thrown out there. Like, to me, it became a bit of a challenge. I was like, how, you know, give it your best. Like,
Yeah,
You
see,
wanted
you
the second most vote.
yeah, it was like, you know, come at me, Cooper, dang, whatever.
You could have at least got to 30. I mean, come on.
That's right. Yeah, I know. Anyway, that's probably my only regret, as I said, was not trusting John sooner. I don't necessarily know that that would have changed anything because the situation was the situation. It was a bummer that he never got to go to sacrifice. Although I will say the one thing, I know James thinks he made the right decision. If James had like actually gone for that sacrifice and he got something, he could have given something to John. We could have been a 4, but I don't know. That might have got me back on side with John, but then again, I was never going to work with Anna, so, you know, probably the right decision.
Dan asks, he's getting some intel right now. If you play again, who would you want to play again with the most from both seasons? Do you have people that you'd like, especially from season
in
1?
Canberra? Funny enough, I'd still want to work with James. And, you know, I actually, there's one thing that I do want to say. You know, going on to Canberra, and sorry, Dan, I will get to your question, but I feel like this is a really important thing to say. So since the season, probably my season bestie is James. Like, we're a very odd couple. I kind of look at ourselves like a Denise and Malcolm kind of scenario. Like, we weren't that tight, but we are tight after the show. And as I've been watching things back, I've just felt really sorry for James. Like, you know, I feel like he's had a lot of things portrayed about him that I don't feel are necessarily right. And I don't think that was the intention. But I also feel like, you know, the whole thing with Sophie, like, I know Sophie didn't do it deliberately. They had very different gameplays. But the whole thing with Survivor, right, we all know, like, the hypocrisy of it. They lied to me, but I've already lied to them kind of scenario. And, oh, you know, he's playing hard, but, you know, I looked at it as, yes, okay, James was playing hard, but the way that Sophie confronted James was actually quite hard in itself. And I actually feel really sorry for how James was portrayed because he's had Banfield come after him, he's had Sophie come after him, and all of this, like, is in the public eye. And I can say with certainty that that's not what James is about. He is the most genuine person, one of the most genuine people. I adore him. He has such a soft, as much as he's got that 20-something-year-old little cocky nature, which every man does in their 20s, he's got the most beautiful heart. And, you know, I stan him. And, yeah, I'm really grateful that I got to meet him. You know, I love everyone on the crew, and I'm not, you know, ostracizing anyone, but I just felt like when I rewatched the season, I actually felt quite sorry for James, and I want him to know I love him, and I know that that wasn't his intention, and he's a beautiful human.
And we did talk about that because it was mentioned that his style was an aggressive style. And I think Mylo was on that cast with me. And we did talk about how we didn't view it as aggressive. We just viewed it as that was his style of playing and that him and Sophie had very different styles. So in our,
I think they've got, I think they've got a different level of obsession. Yeah, I think they've got a different level of knowledge and obsession of the game. And I also think, like, they're coming from two very different positions. Like, James is
100%.
a threat because he's a strong challenge beast and, you know, he was an obvious target. And Sophie's got all these people around her protecting her to a degree. And, yeah, I watched it back and I had a lot of empathy for him.
So, just on Dan's question, though, aside from James, is there anyone else you play with from both seasons?
Look, the author is probably loving all these mentions right now. And John?
100% I would want to work with John again. I mean, look, my boys, I love my gays. So John and Michael, like, I sniffed them out straight away. I wanted to play with them, like, no problem whatsoever. James as well, like, I absolutely adore him. Ma was great, but I knew that she was manipulating things socially. Wouldn't mean I wouldn't work with her again because, like, I love people that understand Survivor and have great strategy and, you know, are thought processed individuals. So, yeah, Nick was just so much fun. Like, that was one of my favorite moments, even though it was at my detriment. Nick throwing that random vote on Sophie, it absolutely cracked me up. I knew, and I think that I had a confessional about it, and I don't know whether I named Nick. I knew someone was plotting against us and to make, like, potentially for them, if anyone was going to flip, I knew that that was what that vote was designed against. It was to make people doubt Anna and myself. And I did think it was Nick. I wasn't 100%. I don't know whether I ever had a confessional about that. Dan might be able to confirm it. But yeah, Nick was my number one suspect, even though I might not have been 100%, but I love that. So I don't know. Did I answer Dan's question?
I think you covered that one.
Here's Dan.
All right. I think we should potentially wrap this up. But before we go, just give us, you know, an overview, a closing thought, anything that you want to say here.
Yeah, as I said, I think I covered it. Like, it was hard for me to rewatch, but if you asked me to do it again, I would in a heartbeat. The community is what Dan's built in, and you guys would know this, you know, after podcasting and listening to everyone's stories. The Canberra Survivor community is one of the greatest. Like, you know, I know people from others, and yes, everyone's tight, but, you know, what Dan is what I perceive to be the most humble person. He's so grateful for the fact that everyone is volunteering. And it's the same with you guys. Like, you know, the work that you put into Edgic, Mylo, the fact that you're here on the podcast every week, like, all of this is everyone's volunteering their own time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're all doing it because it's our passion. And that's because of what Dan's created. Like, and I think, you know, if it's a different personality mix, it might not have the same result. But, you know, you look at season 1 and we were fangirling the fact that someone from season 1 was doing our confessionals. Like, everyone in the community is tight and they love it. So I'm just really grateful that I'm a part of this particular community and I got a chance to play. It's Dan's Stan Club, yes. But yeah,
I can say personally, I'm also really glad that you're a part of this community. I completely agree, Dan, and also, you know, everyone involved with the crew, the cast, everyone has made this so lovely, both on my side, but also your side, playing and being there, loving it, and yeah, nothing but positive words for our group.
Yeah, and I should chuck Liv in there. And can I just say, Liv has the best eyelashes and the best, I don't even know what that raincoat thing was, but, like, I was looking at her the whole weekend thinking, girl, your fashion is on point. Like, she's beautiful. So, and they have such a great chemistry together as well. So not going to forget Liv.
No, to not forget Liv. We love her too.
Yeah.
All right, I think we'll finish this up. But thank you for being with us.
No
Say
worries.
goodbye to Mel, everyone.
Thanks, Mel.
Bye.
Oh, I love her.
Oh my gosh, so much fun. We love a good drunk interview. Honestly, I don't even mind when people ramble on their answers, because that just means they're giving us all the info we want. We don't want people to be cagey and
100%.
just hide it in. So much better
No,
to
this
get.
is the opportunity. The
Yes.
Backbenchers podcast is where it's at. You need to tell it how it is.
Exactly.
Spill the tea.
Yep. If you're on the podcast, no zipped lips. You just got to let it out. We've definitely had some tea spilled over these weeks. Let's finish up the last things that we do here. You already kind of mentioned your favorite / funniest moment, but just reiterate it now so we all remember.
Yep. So Mel, I loved her when she was. Oh gosh, I've forgotten my moment now. Mylo, refresh my memory. Oh my gosh, what? It was Mel. What did she do?
Having a bit of an Amy moment right now. We just can't quite remember it.
I can't remember what it was.
I can go with my moment first if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I had a couple moments. None of them were jumping out at me this is the moment. I think one of my the most noteworthy moment was when Sophie started helping Nick. I'm not sure it was necessarily funny, but when I watched that, I genuinely it just stunned me when I first watched it. So I was like, oh my god, this is happening! Wow. So that was definitely a favorite moment, at least because it was noteworthy. I also found it a little bit humorous hearing Sophie basically just tell Anna, we're not going to help you out here. I thought that was a little bit funny as well. Do you remember your moment?
Yes, it was at the end when she said, if Anna voted with me, then I'm glad. And I feel bad for calling her Amy. The other thing that I liked was Mel trying to be chill and get Michael and Ma to join them, and she was just planting the seeds with Nick as well. So a lot of my moments did have to do with Mel this week. Yeah.
Sounds good. On the topic of players, though, let's do some awards. Have you already got your top 3 sorted out, or do you need a bit of time?
I want you to go first just to see if ours are the same.
Okay. I've done gold for Ma pretty much every time, and as much as I want to do it again, I'm not going to, just to shake it up a tiny little bit. So I am going to give gold to Nick, just because I think at this point I have to give him credit for being able to consistently save himself each time. He is a target. I'm not sure if he'll make it to the end. We'll speak about that quickly in a little bit. But he's doing what he needs to do to survive. And at this point, he's presumably got just 2 more challenges to win. If he wins those 2 challenges, he might win the entire game just based off that. So he gets my gold this week. My silver goes to Ma. I think she's playing a really smart game, so I'm really impressed with how she's doing. Definitely give her that. And bronze is kind of tricky. I considered giving it to Joanna just because I liked watching her over the season. I thought she was a really fun character to watch. I think I've given her a bronze award for a similar reason earlier, though. So I am going to give this bronze to Michael just to give him a little bit of credit. Like Mel said earlier, Mel and Ma are a duo. We see a lot more of Ma, so we assume that Ma's doing more of the gameplay. But at this point, it is clear that Michael is also playing the game as well. Michael is lying to people's faces. He is being sneaky, and he's in the swing vote position quite a few times now. So Michael does deserve, I think, a bronze medal from me.
So speaking of Michael, he's getting my gold. And the reason that Michael is getting my gold is because I just love how he went up to Nick. He's like, I'd never vote you. But he's doing it to everybody. So that's why I'm going Michael. Love that for him. My silver, it's tricky. It's getting harder and harder each week to pick. My silver is going to go to Ma. I just love her comments. She's just so upfront, on her confessionals. And I just love that. How she's like, I've been gunning for Nick. I want him gone. And then she'll say, I just feel like all the comments that she says become an episode title. I just love that. Yeah, so Ma's going to get my silver. And then it pains me to say, because I don't really want to give it just for challenge performance, but I'm going to have to give it to Nick for challenge performance.
No, that's totally fair. You don't want to pull like an episode 2 where you gave it to Grace, where you're like, I think Grace deserves a medal. Because you could do that. There's no merit on these medals. You can give a medal to whoever you want.
Yeah, I know. Like Dan's already got a quarter of a point.
I forgot. Dan's on the leaderboard, y'all.
Whoop, whoop.
Oh,
I changed my mind. Liv can get a quarter of a point too.
Wait,
No.
so does that mean you're taking a quarter away though from Nick?
No, I can't do that. Nick can have my whole bronze. It's okay.
Well, he says here, thank you, Maddie, for suffering through that pain.
Anytime.
All right. Oh, and John points out here, we gave equal points to Ma, Nick, and Michael this week because we did like the same list, but we're in reverse.
Oh,
there you go.
Wild.
All right. This is kind of what I'm thinking because next week's finale, we can talk about predictions for the next week, but let's quickly talk about the 5 players left in the game and our thoughts on them before we head into it. So, firstly, a prediction for next week, like just a general one. I think that I don't think Nick will make it to the end. If I had to guess, I think he's going to lose a challenge and get voted out. I don't know who else will be voted out. If I had to guess, maybe Anna because she's the last Winu, or maybe Sophie. I do think that Ma and Michael are making it to the end, though. That's just my prediction, though. What do you think?
Yes, I agree. Ma would be for her social game, but I feel that she's going to take Michael because I feel that Ma feels that she can beat Michael. And like we've said, that we feel that Ma is getting a lot more. And like, I'm not bad mouthing the edit or anything like that, but she's getting more of the credit than what we're seeing more of Ma than Michael in that duo. I also feel that it would make sense to take Sophie to the final 3 or 2, because I feel like Nick would get the praise for his physical ability, and he's also got some of the boys like Mal. I feel would go maybe Nick over Ma just because of the little bit of the So I think it would make sense to take Sophie, Michael, and Ma. If I was Ma, I would be taking those people, or I'd be taking Anna. But I would definitely I'd be getting rid of Nick because he's just physical threat.
Yeah. Let's go through the final 5 players. First up, alphabetically, is Anna.
Mm-hmm.
I think Anna, for me, I really was rooting for Anna for quite a while in this merge. At the start, I was kind of like a little bit iffy on her, but I've really liked how her confessionals have been since the merge because she's talked about not letting people control her game, standing up for herself. I think that's a really cool storyline. With that said, going into finale, I'm not sure she can win at this point. I would love to be surprised. I would love to see a massive, I don't know, just a big explosion of gameplay for her. But I do think at this point it seems less likely that she'll win than most of the Kubadangs because they have been in control for so much of this game.
Yeah.
Anna hasn't necessarily had that same control. But do you agree?
It would have been nice if Sophie and Nick stayed together, Ma and Michael stayed together, and they both tried to pull Anna. But I just don't feel like that's going to happen. But to get rid of, if the Kubadangs did want to get rid of another Kubadang, that would be the way to go about it, I feel. But I just don't think that will happen. Unfortunately. But yeah, I think Anna's the next to go.
Yeah. Then I can't really think about it alphabetically. I think that Ma is next alphabetically. Yeah. We've talked about Ma quite a bit. If I need to reiterate it, I've loved her gameplay. I genuinely have no idea how she's doing it so well. I've played several orgs before, not LRGs, but I've played several orgs before. And it just seems like no matter what, you can't quite always be good with everyone. There's going to be someone who's going to figure you out, someone who's going to go against you. And Ma just has not had that person who's properly gone against her yet.
No.
I think if I had to place a prediction now, I think Ma is going to win, but I don't know. I haven't been spoiled. So
yeah, I think it's Ma. Or if they don't get rid of Nick, it's Nick.
So, yeah, Nick, we'll talk about him quickly. I do think he makes it to the end. It makes sense for him to win, unless maybe he's against Ma. I think his way to the end right now is to win the last 2 challenges. Or maybe Sophie will try and take him. Not sure about that.
We'll see. Michael?
Michael's been so hard to read because from what Mel just said, it seemed like Ma and Michael are an equal partnership. But he doesn't talk about himself that much in confessionals. Ma has these beautiful confessionals where she just has great analogies, really good, title worthy.
Warrior princess, climate change. She's hit them all.
But then Michael just doesn't necessarily, he's a fine narrator. He doesn't speak poorly. He just doesn't speak in the same way Ma does. And usually he speaks about other people, not himself. So it's just hard to know what Michael is doing.
And then we've got
Sophie, I was really high on earlier. In the pre-merge, I was thinking she could be the winner. If you've seen my Edgic, she was on my winner contenders for a while. The last couple of episodes have been a bit weird for Sophie, though. I'm not sure if you felt the same way, but it's been a bit less of Sophie is in control, in
She's
charge.
more on the out of the, I feel Michael's got more of an in at the moment.
Great.
Especially with what just happened in his challenge.
After that one, yeah. I do think she could make it to the end still, though. I don't think she'll be a target. I could be wrong.
I guess it all depends on the challenges, what type of challenges they are, who they appeal to. Oh,
exactly.
So much happening.
Oh my gosh. It's over in less than a week. It's over in less than 48 hours, actually, funnily enough. It's actually because it's going to be on Thursday night for anyone watching, on Thursday night, 8 p.m., which is 45 hours from now. It's going to be all over.
What am I going to do on Friday nights now?
I don't know. You could go to the clubs. You could
Excuse me, I enjoy having a beverage and watching my Survivor Canberra.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Daniel's popping in here. 8:30 p.m.
Oh, that's right, 8:30.
I did not know that, so I'm glad that you remembered. Reminded me of that. Thank you.
Sorry.
Question before we go, Maddie, how are you so pretty? Can you give us some secrets here?
Look, I don't even know, Ma. I'm just flattered by the compliment. And I keep tossing my hair. This is just what it's just what I do. It's the hair toss. Mylo does it better. I think we should have a hair toss off to end, Mylo.
No. Maybe next week. We'll see.
If you're lucky.
Nick is saying we'll see you both at the finale party. Yes, hopefully. Fingers crossed. We'll get some
Fingers
good
crossed,
photos
hopefully.
But we will still most likely be doing the podcast, I believe, Tuesday night. It should be a nice long podcast. We'll have at least 3 of the final 5. Hopefully as many as we can, but definitely at least 3 of them. Until then, though, John is asking which conditioner I use. I use Head and Shoulders, and I'm not sorry about it. We will see you. Well, I will see you guys next week. Maddie might be joining. If not, she'll be at the finale party anyway. So you'll see her at some point.
Alrighty.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.